So another thing, right? Before you go on trying to clean the dirt out of someone else's eyes, let's first focus on the dust and mire that's in your own. How about that? So hold on real quick. I was in the middle of a workout because that's what legends do. You know, we stay active. So I'm going over some real issues and shit, and it tells me it's important to keep your temple sacred and clean. You know, the temple is everything. Hold on, wait, let me. I think I was watching a little bit of the I think it's the Jeffersons or some shit. I don't know. One of those old flicks, old series, dope as hell. A lot of gems, a lot of game and gems. You know, just masterclass in itself. But that's also dying now because people don't watch cable TV or cable networks nowadays. You know, everybody's on the on the phones. You know, and well, a large portion of it. You know, and so things are different. You know, I've become an inventor, a scientist, philosopher. I know many subjects and topics like theology, astrology, quantum mechanics, quantum physics, mostly in the mechanical parts. You know, I'm more fluent in the mechanics of the structure and the fabrics of the nature, which gets me to speak like a Carl Sagan if I keep going. But my point was to say that I'm like a science engineer and a master. So it's important to keep your temple sacred and clean, you know? You wouldn't walk with dirty sneakers. You go in there with no sneakers, no shoes, no nothing. You know what I mean? That's how sacred it gotta be. Now, people don't practice that, and it upsets me, frustrates me. There's a lot of fans. I got an audience now to the point where they fabricated and made a building just for us, and now the whole, like, there's people paying rent, you know, all just to witness my story and shit. And the level of pretense and illusion and delusion that people make up to not say that it's so, you know, it's crazy. It's gargantuan, so mounting, you know, like mountains, tons. I'm surprised we don't create our own pyramids. You know, like, no one's ever thought about that, you know? Everybody's still in the copying phase and sampling and trying to be like everybody else. They forget that they can also do those phenomenons, you know? You don't have to go anywhere to find it. It's right there if you look at it. And if you look for it, you know? Just look in the mirror. And while you do that and learn to assess your own flaws to make better, I'm over here, as you see in the picture, creating some mechanical stuff that's gonna be used in your reality, like on an everyday basis. Kind of like what smartphones did when, you know, Steve Jobs came or some shit, you know? So basically, the next Tony Starks, Bruce Wayne, you know, without the ones that you know as those, because none of them come close to my brand, you know? And it's still, you know, becoming more cleansed and polished, refined, I should say, sanctified, because with time, I just get better and better. And, you know, everybody want a piece of that. You know what it is? It's compound interest. They want my compound interest. I'm doing this daily, dropping it like nothing. And it's just a little habit I created from being productive. And it became compound interest. You know? Because it's my creation. It's high tech, it's evolution, it's out of this world. And it's my show, my podcast, which I've been doing for over a decade. I was the first ones. Just like I was the first one to ride around in my neighborhood with an electric skateboard, you know. Nobody else was doing that at my time, you know. There was not even scooters or electric bikes. I'm in there flying down the streets, everybody looking at me like some Superman or some shit. Then I leave, you know, come back. Everybody got scooters and electric bikes. Still, nobody rides on a skateboard. Don't copy, you know, because I would know. But I took that shit to California too. I was down riding in my shit in Venice Beach and Santa Monica, and also San Francisco and Mission Street. Yeah, I remember them streets. I was by the what do you call that? It was like the docks and shit. You could see Alcatraz. And I was looking at that shit while there was like a bunch of seagulls or seals and shit flapping around. No bullshit. But I digress. I've been doing this for over a decade, you know, with the high tech, you know, and my compound interest has caught up. It's like catching up or something where everybody's on it and shit. And the compound interest, you know, that's like mostly digital works and shit. But also in the real world, it's visible to see. You know, like I got a big aura. So that comes from, you know, having a millionaire, billionaire, trillionaire mindset. And as you can see, surrounding me by people who think like pennies, it's not a good idea because my words have to be valid. And in some instances, the actions tends to damage because the seriousness of the words that linger in the vessel's, you know, mind. It has to proceed with some deeds, some action, visible. And there's no sit down on it, you know, sleep on it, you know, there's none of that. It's react, and then you could ask questions, you know. Like, that's just the way of it. Another episode of your Lord and Savior, Lord 13. Look out for more. Under construction, but most great things usually are. And then later on, you realize the magnificence and brilliance of it. But some of you are ahead, you know. You know what it is? I was telling this kid the other day, right, who lives around my neighborhood. And I'm like, you know, when I was like in third grade, in grammar school, you know, I got skipped, you know, for being too smart. So they skipped me to I think it was fourth grade, right? But somehow that made me a lot faster because I started taking that practice in real life, just skipping ahead, you know, because I realized, wow, I could skip grades. So what else can I skip in real life, you know? So I kept at it, and then I ended up getting Even, but I was also bad because, like I said, my words had to react. I had to lead to something, and that something was usually a brute and led to criminal offense. You know, just a lot of criminal stuff. And on this goal, because of my compound interest and the intellect of this mind that this vessel carries through wearing its brain. I know you like the way that I speak. I'm ill like that. Like, I really believe in my words. Hell yeah. Everything that comes out. So anyway, like I was saying, I lost my train of thought, but like I was already exiting anyway, so I'm gonna keep going with my workout. Oh, about the kid, right? So I kept practicing that, right? Like I kept practicing the skipping, you know, and so I got kicked out of many high schools because I was bad, like I said. But then it led me to try to get the GED, and I passed. At that time, you know, they just give you the test. Now you got to go through a whole course, 6, 7, you know, a whole year basically. It turned into a high school where now to graduate and get that GED, you got to go through like 4 years of like normal college. Anyway, I took that shit with one test. I passed it with like a C. I was not even. It was not even a B or A. You know, later on after I started getting A's and B's and shit. But just to get the GED, I passed that shit on the first go with a C. And I was only 16 years old, so I was in college. I was in college at 16, while everybody was still in high school till they were 18 or whatever age you have to be to graduate high school. You know what I mean? So. That's how I kept skipping grades. You know, I started beating everybody. You know, everybody was still in high school. I'm in fucking college and shit, and I'm only 16. And so it all started from me getting skipped. Like I said, you know, it was my 3rd grade teacher. No, actually, I think it was my 4th grade teacher, and she skipped me to the 5th grade. Regardless, right? Like the point is, I learned how to skip. And it put me ahead of people. So, you know, and you got to notice, it only comes from self-development, self-care, you know, a need to want to learn something. You got to basically stress the brain to do the things you don't like to do, you know, which means maybe you got to get up off your ass and do the things you say you're going to do, but don't do. You know, a lot of people say they want to work out, but they don't work out. I'm in my room, like before I even hit the gym, I'm like in my room do some jumping jacks or some shit, you know? Quick burpees or fucking stretch or some shit, you know? Do a little stretch. And then thank me. All right, man.